Tree monitors are some of the most incredible animals on our planet. In this video, we're going to be talking about exactly how I set up my enclosures for my tree monitors. All the way from what type of cage I'm using, the sizing, the lighting, furnishings that I put in it, as well as the substrate to the misting systems that I have in these enclosures. We've created a guide that you can download in the description below. I'm Brian Susan, and you're tuned in with Sundown Reptiles. So this is the basic setup that I use for hatchlings all the way up to 7-month-old animals. To start with, I like animal plastics caging that is 3 feet wide by 2 feet tall by 2 feet deep. I find that these PVC cages work amazingly well for holding humidity and for allowing me to screw in the panels for the cork on these cages. And speaking of the panels, this is the #1 thing that I do when I get my cages, is I will get these cork panels here that are on the sides of the walls and on the back of the wall. And what that does is that increases the climbing surface area for your animal. Being that this is a tree monitor, these animals are going to be climbing a lot. So making your walls climbable is essential. That also allows us to be able to use our branches here to wedge them in between our cork panels so that we have this very important horizontal branch that's going underneath our UV. For my lighting, I like to use ZoomEd's 5.0 T5 bulbs. These provide the sufficient amount of UVB for tree monitors, and I really like how they work for my animals. I'll buy my UV fixtures from ZoomEd as well, or you can get a fixture that is a T5 grow light that will work well for your bulbs. For my halogens, I use these ceramic plates that you can get at Lowe's or Home Depot, as well as an electrical box right above it. And for my electrical cord, I'll buy an 8-foot cord from Amazon.com to be able to use my 39-watt halogen bulb. For temperatures in my cages, I like to keep a hot spot at 90 to 95 degrees and ambient temperature in the cage of 80 degrees. I always want to make sure that I have a perch that is around 8 inches to 12 inches below the UV bulb, and you will find that your monitor is going to spend a majority of its time on these horizontal branches. For keeping tabs on my temperatures in the cages, I use these infrared thermometers. They can be purchased on Amazon, and most of them all work the same. I will include a link down below so that you can see where to grab these yourself. Having a branch underneath your halogen bulb will allow your animal to thermoregulate within this enclosure. After a meal, lots of times you'll catch them basking underneath this halogen. To reach your desired temperature, I like to use a dimmer switch that you can also purchase at Home Depot or Lowe's, and you can set your desired temperature by dimming up or dimming down your halogen bulb and checking with your infrared thermometer. In addition to my side cork panels, for my furnishings, I like to use a lot of branches. Your animal is going to climb all over your branches, and for these, I simply use a nice hardwood, something like oak, maple, or a hickory. Those branches seem to work very well for these guys and last a long time, so long as it's a hardwood. I also include cork tubes and flats in my cages. The cork tubes are very important, but the size is very, very essential for your animal. You want to match the diameter of your cork tube to the diameter of the body of your animal. That is going to allow your tree monitor to feel secure when it goes inside of the tube, so that it can wedge itself against the walls if it feels scared, and it will also sleep in that area at night. I like to use cork flats against the walls of my cork panels. You can see that I can stick my hand right behind this cork flat, and it is very tight back there. Your tree monitor will like to wedge itself between this cork flat and your cork panels. I purchase a lot of my cork at Pangea. They have both nice cork tubes and flats, and I also have gotten my cork panels from them as well. For a substrate, I like to use Cypress mulch. It's very easy to clean, and if I need to change it out, I can compost it. You can also take used cypress and use it for gardening purposes. I always want to make sure that I'm providing a fresh water bowl for my animals. Having fresh water available for your tree monitor is essential. They will drink from it actively. These cages do have sliding glass fronts on them. You do want to make sure for your enclosure, if you are getting a fresh baby or if you're putting hatchlings in this cage, that you have some sort of brushing guard in between your glass, because if the gap is too big, your animal can potentially get through there. So make sure that there is no space for your animal to get between your sliding glass doors. When it comes to misting, I like to hand mist my juvenile enclosures. For my adults, I use a misting system. You can use a misting system for your juvenile as well. For my furnishings, I try to not get too much busier than this. This gives me a couple of cork tube hides that the animal can sleep in. They can still get behind their cork flat wall. They can climb the enclosure. But if I go too much busier than this and you get a brand new tree monitor, lots of times they can be very shy and hide. So if you go too much busier than this, it can be difficult to keep tabs on your animal, to see if it's feeding, and they can hide a majority of the time. When your animal outgrows its juvenile cage, that is when I move them into a larger enclosure. This is a 4 foot tall by 4 foot wide by 2 feet deep cage that I will use for my adult tree monitors. And this is as small as I would ever go for my tree monitors. I always encourage folks to go larger with their cages, so long as you can meet the minimum temperature requirements and make sure that your ambient temperatures are consistent throughout the cage. The larger that your enclosure is, the harder it's going to be to heat. In this enclosure, you'll notice that I have all of the same things that we had in our juvenile cage. We have our walls corked, we have our cross branching, we have our horizontal branch going from one side of the enclosure to the other that is underneath the UV, and we have our basking spot, which you can see this golden spotted tree monitor utilizing as we speak. The main difference that is in this cage is that we have these misting nozzles up top designed by Ryan Turnquist of Herp. Each misting nozzle has 2 different spray points on it, as you can see, with an on-off valve. So we have a total of 4 nozzles that are in this cage. My misting systems usually run once to twice per day, depending on the time of the year and if I feel that the substrate in the cage is getting too wet. Then I'll dial it back. If I have a pair of tree monitors, I'll basically set 2 of these cages side by side with an entryway for the animals to get between the cages, therefore being able to utilize 8 feet of space wide by 4 feet tall by 2 feet deep. But again, this is the minimum that I would use for a single adult animal. Everything that you see in this cage is the same, from our substrate to our water dish to the furnishings, the lighting. I also add in these feeding cups that are over here. These feeding cups make it easier to contain the crickets in your cage. While I do like to have some free-range insects in the cage, it kind of creates a little bit of a cleaner environment for you if you're keeping your cage and don't want crickets to be escaping outside of it. Your feeding cups also provide a very easy way for you to keep track of what your animal is eating. Obviously, if you're putting a quail or a mouse or your cockroaches, crickets in that cup, you can see what's been eaten for the day. And again, a key note, if you take a look at these cork tubes, we've upsized the cork tube because our tree monitor is larger now. Again, making sure that we match that cork tube size to the animal's body. Caging, lighting, furnishings, substrate, you're all set. If you start with captive bred animals and you follow these requirements, you're going to have a very pleasurable experience with your tree monitor. I appreciate you guys tuning in, and hopefully this helped you with your journey on setting up the perfect cage for your animal. We've got links below for everything that you need, and as always, if you need captive bred tree monitors, you can always shoot me a message at sundownreptiles.com, on Instagram or on Facebook, and we'd be happy to get you set up with any of the species that we work with. Be sure to like and subscribe, and thank you all so much for tuning in. We'll catch you guys on the next video.